In this next news story, an organised crime gang audaciously kidnapped a major drug dealer in the streets after posing as police officers before subjecting him to 12 hours of torture whilst demanding a £500,000 ransom. All members of this 8-strong gang have now been locked up for their roles in the extraordinary plot in which their victim was arrested as he left a barber shop in Hale after having his hair cut. His movements had been tracked by them for weeks. At first, he had no idea that the police officers dressed as plainclothes officers were in fact kidnappers. But soon after, his suspicions were raised and he learned that he had actually been abducted after being driven to a lockup in Gorton. There, during a 12-hour ordeal, he was tasered to the testicles, had his arm burned by a blowtorch and had a realistic-looking gun put to his head. His kidnappers believed he was an underworld don kingpin worth millions. They demanded £100,000 in cash, as well as coke and other Class A drugs worth a further £400,000 in order for him to be released, but his family raised the alarm with police and they were contacted with ransom demands. Armed police raided the yard and rescued him, and 5 members of the gang were sentenced, and now the final 3 have been locked up, including the outfit's heavy, who meted out the punishment to their victim, and the man his accomplices referred to as Big Dave. The victim, who was kidnapped back in April 2019, said he had previously associated with bad people. His kidnappers believed he would have ready access to substantial amounts of cash and drugs, the prosecutor said. A friend of the victim who regularly played football with him became the inside man. This man was Sean Freeman. He helped provide information about him as an out-of-town gang was recruited to carry out the kidnapping in order to avoid suspicion falling onto Manchester-based gangsters. A Midland-based outfit was sourced for the plot. The gang spent weeks tracking his movements. About a month before the kidnap, Sean Freeman, his mate, went out for a meal with the victim in Didsbury, luring him there so accomplices could place a tracking device on his car. Never trust no one, guys. I'm telling you that now. Anyway, on April 11, 2019, the gang struck as the victim left a barber's in Hale. He was approached by Daniel Lowe, Ben Ukwabu, and John Bishop as police officers. They told him he was under arrest on suspicion of Class A drugs and he took it at face value, the prosecutor said, and he was handcuffed and he was placed in an Audi A6. The officers told him that there was no room at any nearby police custody suites as they stopped on a back street in Gorton, but the reality of his situation soon became clear when he was dragged out of the vehicle by Micah Falwell and then bundled into a VW transporter. He was driven to a lockup in Gorton where he was held for the next 12 hours as a £500,000 ransom demand was made to his family. But cops stormed the unit after being tipped off by the victim's family member. 2 men, Ben Ukabebu and John Bishop, were both arrested at the scene. Waffle, he fled to Spain but was extradited back to the UK in November 2020. Nicky Barnes, Daniel Lowe and Michael Ituhu were arrested later. In January 2020, Michael Ituhu, who was 36 years old, a former football agent whose brothers both played for Manchester City, John Bishop, Ben Akibuku, Daniel Lowe and Nicky Barnes were all jailed after pleading guilty to conspiracy to kidnap and conspiracy to blackmail. Ituhu was the facilitator and organizer in Israel for 10 years and 2 months. Ukabegu received 11 years and 3 months. Lowe sentenced to 10 years and 6 months. Barnes was jailed for 12 years and Bishop was sentenced to 7 years in jail. Just the other day, Sean Freeman and Delroy Chin, who fitted the tracker onto the victim's car, were sentenced after being found guilty of conspiracy to kidnap after a trial. Mika Wolfel pleaded guilty to conspiracy to kidnap and sentenced alongside them, and Wolfel was sentenced to 7 years and 3 months, Freeman to 9 years, while Chin was jailed for 11 years. Sentencing judge Hilary Manley said this was a sophisticated, premeditated and carefully organised criminal enterprise. After the hearing, Detective Sergeant Mark Evans of Great Manchester Police's Major Incident Team said this was a lengthy investigation, and I am pleased that today we have all these individuals, and every single one of these individuals is behind bars. You went on to say Freeman was a friend of the victim, regularly playing football with him, as well as luring the victim to the Parswood Centre. He also recorded the vehicle registration of the victim in his mobile phone, along with the names of the victim's family members. He sourced the lockup used to help hold the victim and met with the kidnap team in the days before the actual kidnap, travelling in convoy with their vehicles from the lockup where the victim would eventually be held on a visit to a pub in Alderley Edge, which was set up as the original drop location for the ransom money. Said we hope this provides some closure for the victim and their families, and they can finally move forward with their lives, and I would like to thank them for their patience and assistance with this investigation. And in this next news story, a man came up with an incredible excuse after his DNA was found on a murder weapon. John Charlton was forensically linked to a Glock which was used in a fatal shooting, was also fired at a house on another occasion. But following the discovery, cooked up a bizarre explanation that he had handled the weapon believing it was merely a toy gun, having stumbled across it whilst delivering firewood to a house. He told the judge, "I'm sorry about that," as he was locked up yesterday afternoon. Liverpool Crown Court heard that the firearm was seized alongside 2 revolvers, bullets, cannabis and cash when police raided the home of Gordon Rhodes in Netherton in February last year. The then 57-year-old was imprisoned for 9 years and 9 months in August 2023 for his role in storing the guns. The prosecutor described how the pistol in question was used in a murder in 2020, as well as to fire shots at a house during another incident in 2022. Charlton's DNA was subsequently found all over the Glock, including on the internal parts. The 42-year-old gave evidence to the court during a trial issue yesterday, stating that he had previously held a casual job with a skip hire company at the time and he had handled the item. He claimed that he would salvage quantities of wood which had been deposited in the firm's skip before selling them on as firewood for £5 a bag. Charlton has previous convictions of robbery, burglary, assault, occasional actual bodily harm, and cultivating cannabis. Said that he would also supply Rhodes with wood for the log burner in his kitchen for free. After meeting in the park whilst walking his dog, he told the court, "It was just something I did. I took it in my own hands to do. I just seen it as a waste." He said Rhodes seen me passing someone else firewood. He goes to Aldi to buy wooden blocks for the fire. Knowing he was disabled, I thought I could help him out. Described on one occasion saying, "I knocked on with 2 bags of firewood. He was eating in his living room. He told me to go through the kitchen. I put the bags of firewood down by the burning stove. He was there and I seen an airsoft pistol gun box on the worktop. I opened the box and took the pistol out. It's just as what you do as a kid. It's what I've always done. It's just the force of habit. I was looking where to put the BBs to have a little go of it. I was just going to fire it at the floor. It's very minor. Kids fire them at each other. It's not as powerful as a paint gun, like a spud gun type of power." He recounted and said that Rhodes entered the kitchen and he shouted at him and said, "Put that down, that's a real one." I threw it towards the worktop. The clip fell out, the gun fell to the floor. I threw the pieces onto the side. I didn't realize it was a real gun. I spun it around on my finger and everything, playing with it. I had my hands all over it. I was trying to pull it, push it and everything. Can all do a little bit of a pull and a push. I had my fingers all over the inside, pulling it. I handled it everywhere. You play with guns, toy spud guns. I play all the time, and I'm really sorry about that. So Charlton admitted possession of a prohibited weapon and possession of ammunition without a certificate, and he's jailed for 5 years and 7 months. Absolute madness, guys. A couple of stories. Let me know what you think. It's your boy GC. Keep it locked. Keep it real.